Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, September 21st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Wisconsin game is in 3 days, the game against Michigan in 66 days. That Wisconsin game is shaping up to be a very big one this weekend. It's the start of Big Ten play, plus a nationally televised primetime game, some very big visitors coming to the Horseshoe, and yes, a crowd and team dressed in all black. If you are attending the game, Ohio State respectfully asks that you wear black. So there you go. Now you don't even have to think about your outfit. How easy is that? And despite an early loss to Washington State, the Wisconsin team coming to town seems like it should be a pretty decent Wisconsin team, which is pretty much every Wisconsin team. So what are the Buckeyes expecting this weekend, and what did we learn from Ryan Day and Jim Knowles during interviews on Tuesday? Well, good news. Tony Gerdeman was there, and now Tony Gerdeman is here. He is here to talk to us all about what we learned during those interviews. Tony, thanks for being here.
Tom, thank you for having me, and I'm just realizing that the blackouts are probably I don't know, is this the best type of game for Buckeye guy or the worst type of game? He's going to stand out more, but it goes against, his outfit.
I can't say that I have noticed him during previous blackout games, so I don't know. Maybe does he have a black version of his outfit? I look forward to not paying any attention and not finding out on Saturday. Can't wait. Something I can't wait to find out about is an update on injured Buckeyes. Tony, couple Buckeyes went down. They've been missing some guys. TreVeyon Henderson, Jordan Hancock, Mike Hall. What did we learn about the status of those guys and anyone else for the upcoming game this weekend?
Yeah, I think the only long-term thing, and I say long-term in that it's not necessarily a short-term thing or a done thing, is Jordan Hancock, where he's not really practicing yet, so they need to get him back practicing to where he is then able to play. But everybody else that missed a game last week other than Hancock, your Mike Hall, your Tanner McAllister, your Josh Proctor, and other guys like TreVeyon Henderson who left the game. Ryan Day said that he expects them all to play. Jackson Smith and Jigba wasn't brought up, but I'm guessing Ryan Day's answer would also have been, I expect him to play. Whether or not he actually expects any of these players to play, this is what he is saying. And they held guys out and to be cautious, and I think the reason to be cautious is because of who they are playing this week. You want guys to be as healthy as they can possibly be against Wisconsin, because over the years, when you've talked to players who have played against Wisconsin yearly or every other year, whenever it was, they will always tell you that the Wisconsin game is the game they end up being the most sore after, and they feel it the day after and the day after and the day after. And so this is one of those things where you get everybody as healthy as they can, and you hope that was accomplished by sitting a bunch of people out for Toledo and the second half of Toledo, and now they should be good to go, aside from the guys that we know about who have been out for the season, and also Jordan Hancock at this point.
All right, and with Josh Proctor and Tanner McAllister out last week, that gave an opening for Cam Martinez to start at safety, and listening to Knowles and Day talk about it, sounds like they felt like he really made the most of that opportunity.
Yeah, he graded out a champion, and he's one of those guys who he is like the number one dime. He's the number two nickel, and they feel comfortable putting him out there. And I thought he was solid in run support, obviously good in coverage, had some nice plays in coverage, and there wasn't necessarily any drop-off from McAllister to Martinez that was seen by the naked eye, and certainly as they graded him and he graded out a champion, I'm guessing he played up to his potential and also played up to the standard of that position. So great job by him, and certainly something that gives the coaches more confidence as they find different ways to use all of these different safeties that they have. They've got another guy that they can count on to do whatever they choose to do with him.
And, those defensive backs, there has not been a lot for Ohio State fans to get too stressed out about or be too concerned about so far this year. It feels like people look at kind of Denzel Burke maybe and go, what's wrong with Denzel Burke this year? And, the defensive backfield on the whole, they've given up some big plays, and that's not, out of left field for Jim Knowles. He seems like he's okay with that to a certain degree, to a certain point. But, is the play of the defensive backs, is the play of Denzel Burke a concern for the coaching staff right now?
Well, I think what they have both said, and Jim Knowles said, that life on an island is difficult, and he's absolutely correct. And he has given, he's had some pushback, I think, when people have asked him, what's wrong with Denzel Burke? What's wrong with Denzel Burke? And he's defending his player. And, he said Denzel will get better and better, and they have 100% confidence in him. And Ryan Day has said very much the same thing. Like, they know what kind of player he is. There's just times where some things don't go your way. It's a 50-50 ball on Saturday against Toledo. I think Ryan Day had mentioned that something that we have talked about, the 2 fluke catches in the Notre Dame game, where it's just sometimes things don't go your way. But if it continues to not go your way, then is that that's no longer bad luck. That's just kind of maybe bad play. And I think Denzel does need to do a better job of finding the football sooner. That way he can make a 50-50 ball, a 60-40 ball, something like that, where he can have an advantage and or at least regain the 50-50 edge, edge, if you will, for a defender. But I think they expect things to eventually get better for him. And he has good plays throughout a game. It's just these big plays are finding him. And, Cameron Brown has had his issues here and there as well. Gave up that touchdown that I don't know if he was expecting some help or what, but he got run by, and that's not something that is easy to do when you're as fast as Cameron Brown. So it's one of those things where you look defensively and you're looking for issues. And if there's the corners stand out a little bit, and they may be playing well overall, but when you compare them to the rest of the defense, which is playing pretty well, they're going to stick out as a sore thumb, if you will.
Well, if you look at that front 4, that front 6, I guess I was going to say front 7, but it's really a front 6 now. The linebackers have been flying around and making plays. The defensive line was very disruptive against Toledo. So, it was in a game they won by 56 points. If there was a concern, I guess that was it. But, it doesn't sound like the coaching staff is particularly concerned with that. Something else they are definitely not concerned about at all right now is Cade Stover. He has been really a breakout player for this team. You go back to the spring, and it was kind of a little bit of a question of who's going to be the tight end, and who do they have a guy who can be a Jeremy Ruckert type threat in the pass game? And I think at the time we were thinking, well, if there is someone, it's going to be maybe Joe Royer, and then Joe Royer missed last game, and they didn't miss a beat because it was the Cade Stover show for stretches during the first period or the first half. How impressive has he been to the coaching staff?
Well, the interesting question was to pose to Ryan Day, did you expect him to be this explosive? And Day said, yeah, they did. And he himself has seen it. He saw that skill set a few years ago. And that's when they started talking to him about moving to tight end. And yeah, so he expected this kind of play. And he talked now about how Cade Stover can block. He can protect. He's done those things well. He was more of a blocker last year, but now he's showing what he can do on the perimeter. We talked on Tuesday's Buckeye Weekly about how good his hands are, and he continues to show that over and over again. And he can run after the catch as well. They talked about how good of a basketball player he is, and that has helped his ball skills. And they went to him with this idea, and he put his faith in the coaches to develop him at tight end. And I think he's coming along pretty quickly. Like, I don't know how much we expected him to be this pass catching guy this year, but now it's like, well, what else can they do with him? And how else can they make him a part of this offense? And how much more of a pain is this going to be for defenses? And how is he going to affect defenses, which then allows other players to benefit from it, even if he's just a decoy, because you throw to him enough and he's going to be somebody that they have to worry about.
Yeah, they feel like they need that tight end as a piece of the running game. So if he can be more than just a blocker when they're throwing the ball downfield, and he becomes someone the defense has to account for in the passing game, well, that really complicates things, because there are a lot of other guys out there you'd probably like to have, maybe 2 people covering, and that is not an option if you have to cover the tight end too, because the tight end is a legitimate receiving threat. Having the tight end involved in the passing game is a little bit of a 1990s throwback, early 2000s throwback for the Ohio State offense. There was another early 2000s, late 90s throwback for the Ohio State offense on Saturday. That was a fullback dive for a touchdown. That is not exactly a mainstay of the Ryan Day offense, but you got to ask him about, all about that. What did Ryan Day have to say about his new favorite play, the fullback dive at the goal line?
Well, I did ask him if that was the first time, or when was the last time he called a fullback dive, and he mentioned that he had run it as a player, but that this is the first time in his coaching career that he's ever called it, which, I mean, that's a pretty significant day for a coach, I think. For an offensive coordinator, I finally called my first fullback dive, and you shouldn't have to be in coaching for as long as Ryan Day has as a play caller for nearly 10 years now to finally call your first fullback dive. But it's about that toughness aspect that he has talked about with his team, and you can talk about it a lot, and then you exhibit it through your running the ball out of the shotgun. You really can exhibit it by running out of the I formation when you have all 11 guys in the box facing 11 other defenders in the box, and then you see who is the toughest and who wins. And they ran that fullback dive and barely crossed the goal line. But I think overall, this addition to the I formation, I'm not sure how much of it is Justin Fry, how much of it is Day or Kevin Wilson, or it's just we need to show these players what toughness is and what it takes to make these plays. And then the thing that Ryan Day said is, like, the players like it. They like to be able to show this. And how often have, Tom, we talk to offensive linemen who love to go downhill. They love to hurry up and they love to just run it at defenses, and they love the idea that the defense is just too tired to handle it anymore. And the offense is tired. They don't care. They draw energy from seeing a tired defense, and to see you continue to win and beat a defense. And so they've enjoyed the I formation, just that up close and personal, just go at it and beat the man across from you. And it's not necessarily the zone blocking thing. It's just go be the better guy. And I think they're thriving with that right now.
Well, I mean, when Justin Fry first showed up, he talked about the fact that when it's 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1, and the whole stadium knows what you're going to do, you got to be able to do it anyway. And this seems like they're sort of embracing that, and they have kind of gone with that jumbo package a little bit. If you're ever not sure if they're going to try and just ram the ball up the middle, look for number 41. Last year that was Donovan Jackson changing his number so that he could be an eligible receiver and line up as a jumbo tight end. This year, Josh Fryer is filling that role. Saw him wearing number 41 in some of those goal line situations on Saturday. And they didn't necessarily get it in on the first try, but they got it in eventually. And you said they barely scored a touchdown. Guess how many points that counts for, Tony? 6, just like a regular touchdown. So I think it does feel like they're enjoying that and having a little bit of fun with that. And something else they're having a little bit of fun with is 7-on-7 practice. And when I say 7-on-7, I'm kind of doing some air quotes there, 7-on-7, because they're kind of putting a little bit of a different twist on that for CJ Stroud this year. What are they doing in 7-on-7?
Yeah, Ryan Day was talking about the ability of CJ Stroud to scramble and find receivers. And one of the ways that has been built is by their 7-on-7 in practice. And then they said, well, actually it's 7-on-8 because Jim Knowles will put 8 guys out there. And a couple of times he's actually put 9 guys out there. And so that takes some time to find receivers to go through that mess. But it has made CJ Stroud better. And remember, he did face 9 defenders in a play against Notre Dame where they rushed 2, they dropped 9, and he dropped it into Marvin Harrison for a first down. So that kind of preparation for both the defense and for CJ Stroud has been beneficial. But yeah, 7-on-9 and basically, 5-on-9 or 8 or however you want to do the math on this defense to try to find the 1 or 2 guys who aren't double covered, or these tiny windows. You have to be so precise. And then as you think about it and you watch CJ Stroud in a game, you're like, he is so precise. I wonder how he got that good. And some of it is because that's how good he has to be in practice. And so then that just becomes how he is.
It's like the football equivalent of scoring a shorthanded goal. Still not the single best shorthanded goal in Ohio State football history. That remains David Boston returning an 8-on-11 punt against Pitt in 1996 for the final points, I believe, of a 72-0 win. That one will be hard to top, but CJ Stroud seems like he's at least working on it. So that is what they're doing during practice. And this week during practice they're installing a game plan for Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is a little different than some of the teams they've played. Wisconsin's a little different than a lot of the teams in college football right now, because Wisconsin just kind of does what Wisconsin does. So, when you look at what Wisconsin does on offense, and how that's a little different from the teams, the last couple teams they've faced. Does that change what they're going to do on defense? Are we going to see a third linebacker this weekend?
That's a great question, Tom. Who's to say? Jim Knowles says they have some stuff. They have some things prepared. We have wondered if this would be the game where they see a third linebacker. Is this where we see maybe Cody Simon play alongside Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg? Is this where we see Pala Ienao Teote involved more as that Sam linebacker? Is this where we see Court Williams installed as a Sam linebacker in lieu of a nickelback? Or is this where we see Jim Knowles show everybody the 4-2-5 can stop a running game, which is something that he also talked about, where, it creates confusion in the passing game, but it also creates confusion in the running game. And so there are ways to take advantage of it. And with this defensive line, if they can win their spots, win their battles, then you've got other guys that can clean up. But I am interested to see how many differences there are in this Ohio State defense against a Wisconsin offense that is known. And when Ryan Day was asked, does it make it easier to prepare against Wisconsin when you know what they do? He basically said no, because they do it well. And it's when a team does something well, and that's what they're known for. Yeah, you know what's coming, but you still have to execute, because they are going to execute. Wisconsin will execute. And then Wisconsin defense, Jim Leonhard, if you put a list together of the top 10 defensive coordinators in football, pro and college, he might be on that list. And so there's a ton of respect for him. But as Ryan Day said, it's not about the coaches, it's about the players. And it's not about him versus Jim Leonhard, it's about the players. And both sides of the coin for Ohio State offensively and defensively, this is going to be the best matchup they've seen all year. And I think it might be the best atmosphere, including the Notre Dame game, because it's a more important game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be tough to top the Notre Dame game, to be significantly better than the Notre Dame game. That was a pretty good atmosphere, but it might be as good an atmosphere. And if it's better than that, well, that'll be a pretty fun night in the Horseshoe on Saturday night. Again, Ohio State is going to be wearing black. Ohio State is asking fans to wear black. That always gives it kind of a different, little bit of a different look in there, and just feels a little different, feels a little special when everyone's dressed, whether it's a Tennessee checkerboard or the Iowa stripe out or whatever it is. Those night games always just look visually kind of cool, and so it should be quite a fun night in the Horseshoe on Saturday night. We will be there covering the whole thing. We will have pregame coverage. We will have postgame coverage. We will have it all for you. BuckeyeHuddle.com. Fantastic place. Very, very busy board this week. Busy community this week as we're talking all about that game. We'll have an all-day staff chat this week. We will have lots of threads. Very active game thread on there and that board. It is definitely worth your time to check that out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Alex Gleitman and Mark Givler are previewing a very busy recruiting weekend. There's some big targets coming in. Keon Keeley, the 5-star defensive end, making his second visit to Columbus in about a month. That is pretty big news. He's doing this one on his own dime, and that is someone who Ohio State would very, very much like to add to their defensive line class. So we'll have their analysis. That's all on the Huddle board for members at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And then, so you can make sure you check that out. Sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And also, pre- and post-game coverage at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Tony Gerdeman, Tony, the guy who's here. AP style. We've already said his name. We can just say Tony now. Sorry. Tony, Kevin Noon, and I will be there Saturday pre and post. We'll have our usual assortment of other analysts and insights and interviews and all that kind of stuff on the post-game show. So you're going to want to subscribe today at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. And then make sure you also ring that bell, subscribe to that channel, get notified so that when we go live, you will be joining us for the live shows, because I think there's going to be probably a good amount to talk about this weekend. So that'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.